Funded Today Nation, welcome back to the Funded Today podcast. Last time we had our director of pre-launch and cashback of Funded Today on, Mr. Tevin Albert. If you want a step-by-step systematic approach for how to prepare for your launch, that episode is a must listen. Today we're going to talk about the single most effective way to generate the best possible conversions for your invention. That's a mouthful, but after testing hundreds of other methods and marketing mediums, this one simple strategy trumps all the rest, and it's not even close to just how well this strategy converts to any other method we've ever tested. To do so, we're bringing on another special guest, jack of all trades, get her done, closer himself, Mr. Colton Bybee, the Director of Outreach at Funded Today.
The Funded Today podcast is hosted by world-renowned entrepreneurs and business experts Thomas Alvord and Zach Smith. To get help with your next big business idea or to take your business to the next level, go to fundedtoday.com.
Welcome back to today's masterclass. I am Zach Smith.
And I'm Thomas Alvord.
And if you've not yet had a chance to listen to our last episode and you want to ensure you'll have the best chance for a successful launch, give that one a listen. We talked all about pre-launch strategies. I think you're going to find that one really, really valuable. And one last thing before we get into today's masterclass, if you can spare just a minute or two and rate our podcast by telling us what you think of it, we'd really appreciate your kind words. Every 5-star review helps us spread these tips, tactics, and techniques we've personally used to make a lot of money and create some great lives for ourselves, for you, and others as well. So help us out. Give us a rating. Every little bit helps. Okay, now with all of those preliminaries out of the way, I am really excited for today's masterclass. This one is probably one of my favorite strategies we use at Funded Today. And to do so, we've got the Director of Outreach at Funded Today, Mr. Colton Bybee, on with us. He's going to walk you through the single most important marketing strategy we use and that you can use to raise big money at the highest conversion rates for your next big idea. Colton, welcome to the show. We're so glad you could join us today.
Hey, thanks, Zach. Thanks, Thomas, for having me on. Excited to be here.
Yeah, we are too. So before we get into this strategy, tell us a little bit about what you do at Funded Today, your journey. I mean, really, whatever you want to say.
Yeah, so I'm coming up on here about 3 years with Funded Today. It's been a great adventure. I love working with new products every month, all the time. One of the things, there's a lot of things I do at Funded Today. Basically, one of them is cross collaborations, which we'll dive in here deeper. I also do a little bit of business development as well as our backer network. Those are just a few of the things that I do, but excited to be with Funded Today and working with projects all the time.
How many campaigns do you think you've worked with so far?
Well over 2,000, I would imagine.
Very cool. Any favorites in that mix? Hard to pick a couple, but if you had to shout out to just a few.
Yeah, Spine Gyms, one we're still working with that I worked with a couple months, I believe, after I came on. That's a fun one. Hyper, we worked with quite a few. Hyper Juice is one we're working with right now. Great company.
All right. Well, with that out of the way, you mentioned it briefly, but what are cross collaborations or cross promos, or as we call them at Funded Today, CCs? Tell us a little bit about what this strategy is and why it's so effective.
Sometimes it can be called cross promotions. We call them cross collaborations. Basically, what they are is when you're running a live campaign, and even after your live campaign ends, you're still going to want to keep your backers updated through updates that go out in the form of an email and are also posted to your campaign. At the bottom of those updates, you can take advantage of them by sharing other campaigns that you may like or that have reached out to you, or maybe even similar products, and share those in your update with a link that promotes those campaigns. And in return, those campaigns will also promote yours in the bottom of their updates. It's a great way because Kickstarter is more of a community. A lot of the same backers will back similar products in similar categories. So your backers like to get those cross collaborations and look at them because they're looking for new ideas to back that you'll find all over Kickstarter. But in short essence, that's basically what cross collaborations are.
So if I had like a backpack and you had a water bottle and my backpack had a slot for a water bottle, I would approach you and say, hey, you've got a really cool backpack. I've got a really cool water bottle that looks like it fits perfectly here in this little slot you've designed for your backpack. You tell your backers about my backpack. I'll tell my backers about your water bottle, and together we'll make some money. Something like that?
Yeah, you're exactly right. That's a great example of what a cross collaboration look like, and one that would probably convert really extremely high.
Now, do the cross collaborations, Colton, need to have a synergy like that, a backpack with a water bottle holder and then another campaign that's a water bottle, or say somebody who has a campaign for a shirt and somebody else who has a campaign for a pair of pants? Does it need to fit like that? Or
That's a great question. So if it does fit like that, you may have a slightly higher conversion rate, but it doesn't need to be in the same category or the same, like headphones and another set of headphones, or something that goes with your computer and a computer mouse. You might see a higher conversion rate, but you could do a cross collaboration with a set of earbuds and a backpack, or a set of earbuds and a water bottle, and you probably won't even see a difference in the conversion rate. And that's what makes Kickstarter cross collaborations so neat and unique, is that it's a community, and they're not just Kickstarter backers aren't just on Kickstarter shopping for a specific item or only in one category. They're looking to back just new, cool, different inventions that come across the Kickstarter platform.
Very cool. Now, Colton, you mentioned with cross collaborations to do the update at the bottom. So if I, again, using the backpack analogy, hey guys, yay, we've hit 1,000 backers now. We are on track to be able to ship and deliver 3 months after this campaign ends. Thanks for listening. Now, what do I do with my update? Like, where do the cross collaborate? Where do I post them? Or how I just throw them in at the bottom? Or is there certain language or strategy? Like, what's the approach to make it not come across as promotional or spammy, so that it kind of fits in unison with what you're trying to do? Or is it just because the Kickstarter community is so nice and engaging, they kind of appreciate the mention to check out these other products that might be on Kickstarter?
Yeah, great questions. Cross collaborations are somewhat newer to crowdfunding. I would say they've been around for about 3 to 4 years. But really, the last 2 years, year and a half, they've taken off. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't just throw them at the bottom and hope your backers know what those are about. I would say a majority of them would know, but I always like to put some sort of introduction in there, like, hey, check out some of these other great campaigns we think you might like. Or here's some campaigns that are helping us reach our goal. Let's return that favor and help them reach their goals as well.
I like that one a lot.
Some sort of transition line usually helps better.
All right. Well, let's get to the point then. What do you want to do with cross collaborations? Why do them? Why are they so important? Why are we spending an entire podcast episode talking about cross collaborations and outreach? Maybe we can get into why these are so important.
Yeah, one of my favorite reasons of why to do cross collaborations, even though ads, running Facebook ads, or other things like press and PR may drive more pledges and you can be able to drive more traffic, cross collaborations, I would say 95% of the time, are going to be your highest converting source of traffic.
When won't they be your highest converting source? You say 95%. On the 5%, what's ever going to convert better than cross collaborations?
Sometimes we've seen ads convert higher on those on rare occasions, and that's why I leave that 95% rather than saying 100. Other times you'll see we had a campaign like Tush Baby where press was converting extremely higher than cross collaborations even. So most of the time it's going to be cross collaborations that are converting the highest.
So you're saying if you start with cross collaborations and you don't get a good conversion rate, chances are there's something wrong with one of your 7 Ps, and because if cross collaborations don't convert, nothing's going to convert is a pretty good mantra to live by in the crowdfunding world.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay, gotcha. Talk about conversion traffic. Like, what are we talking about percentage-wise? When we say they're the highest converting, what would be a good conversion rate if I were to do cross collaborations?
On average, our cross collaborations, even now, as I'm looking at a dashboard of a few of our campaigns, convert anywhere from 4 all the way up to 20%.
Now, walk me through that a bit. What does that mean? 4%, 20%? For somebody who is brand new, and let's just use some simple math, 100 visitors come to their page. What does that mean?
Yeah, so take that example, 100 visitors. If we send 100 visitors that click on that link of cross collaborations, it takes them to your page. Out of those 100 people, anywhere from 4 to 20 of those will convert, meaning they'll back your product.
Wow.
That's on average. Usually, as we start doing those cross collaborations for the first week, we'll see that anywhere from 4 to 20% range. And then it will usually end up being closer to anywhere from 5 to 12% that we can keep that steady throughout your whole campaign.
Is 20% the highest you've ever seen, or have you seen higher?
We've seen higher. We've seen, and I think it was actually on one of the hyper campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
I converted for about 2 weeks at 24%.
Wow, very cool. And the lowest about 4%?
The lowest that we usually keep on is about 4%.
The 4% conversion rate on the lower end, is that across all campaigns you ever work with, or just on a typical campaign?
That's across the last 3 years that I've been doing these, that I've seen the average is about that 4% on the bottom.
Oh, so the average, okay. I'm curious. It seems like I've seen here or there a campaign where the conversion rate was like sub 1% or something lower.
When we first start testing things out and we're using different images, we may see those lower than 4%. On average, the ones that we pass through and we continue on to do cross collaborations with will usually maintain that 4% or higher.
So is that kind of your threshold? 4% is where you want to be, and if it's anything lower, based upon all the metrics that you've looked at over 3 years, this isn't going to be a good campaign. This isn't going to work. Is that kind of the mindset you have?
Yeah, in a sense, sometimes we have to dive a little deeper and look at their price point. If you have a really expensive campaign, you're up above $150, we'll sometimes see that conversion rate lower, but you're converting lower, but you're also driving a higher dollar pledge. And so we can make those work.
Okay, that makes sense.
To clarify, Colton, that conversion rate, what number is that looking at? For example, let's say I have a campaign and I see a shoe campaign that I want to do a cross collaboration with. And I go to that shoe campaign and they have 1,000 backers. If the cross collaboration has a 4% conversion rate, can I expect to get 40 backers, new backers, by doing a cross collaboration with them? And the math on that would be 4% of 1,000 backers from their campaign would be 40 new backers. Is that what you mean?
Yes and no. So the 4% averages out across all of our campaigns that we're working with. We may have a few that are lower than that 4%. A majority of them are above that 4%, and that's about the average. The other thing to keep in mind is if you're doing a cross collaboration with a shoe campaign, and there's a lot of factors that go into cross collaborations. One of them is if you click on your community tab or on any community tab of a campaign, some of them will have, like a 60-40 split, meaning 60% of them are new to Kickstarter and 40% of them are returning to Kickstarter. Usually, anytime you have a campaign that has a higher conversion or a higher backer number of returning backers versus new backers, cross collaborations convert at a higher pace and a little better. So if that shoe campaign has 80% returning backers versus 20% new backers to Kickstarter, I would say you could expect about 4% conversion rate off of that.
And returning backers means people who've backed a Kickstarter campaign in the past. That community tab is pretty insightful, actually. It's on every single Kickstarter page.
And also what I wanted to highlight, and I love what you just shared, another item that I think is important to understand is you might have a cross collaboration with another campaign that has 1,000 backers. Not all 1,000 of those backers are going to click on the link in the update and come to your campaign, right? So maybe out of the 1,000 backers, you would get 70% who open and read that update. And then of those people who read it, you might get 30% of the people or 20% of the people who click through. So even though you have a cross collaboration with a campaign that has 1,000 backers, you might only get 200 people to actually click through to your page, right?
That's a really important metric, and one that I'm glad you covered is just because there is 1,000 backers for easy numbers here doesn't mean that all 1,000 are going to click on that. Some may have a faulty email address. Some may not even look at the email. And so you have to go off, those numbers have to go off of who has clicked on that link, not, hey, I have 1,000 backers. I guarantee all 1,000 are going to click on that link. So if you have 1,000 backers, you only have 400 who click on the link, just for easy numbers here, then you could expect that 4% from those 400 who have clicked.
Yeah, that makes sense. So just to walk it back for everybody listening, since that's a lot of math, if your campaign that you want to do cross collaborations with, that shoe campaign that Thomas used, had 1,000 backers, and you say, hey, shoe campaign, do a cross collaboration with me. They message their 1,000 backers. Of those 1,000 backers, 200 of them end up clicking through. On the low end, you'd have 8 conversions. On the high end, you might have 40 conversions. And that's how the math kind of breaks down between that 4 to 20%. So that'll give you some realistic expectations as you go into cross collaborations to kind of know what to expect. All right. So now we know why to do cross collaborations. You're going to do cross collaborations because 4 to 20% conversion rate is amazing. Extremely amazing. I mean, Thomas, speak to conversion rate just generally speaking. I think you might have done this on an earlier episode, but just for those new listeners that we have, what is a good conversion rate overall for a campaign? And why is this such an anomaly when we're talking about 4 to 20% conversion rates as related to cross collaborations?
Yeah, a typical campaign on Kickstarter is obviously going to vary by a number of different factors. But if you were to just take all of your traffic sources across the board, across every campaign, you might be between 1 to 3% on your conversion rate. And again, that number varies so much depending on the conversion rate of your page, the traffic source, your price point, et cetera, et cetera. But 1 to 3% is what you're looking at on average. And I just pulled up in our back end a dashboard that shows the conversion rate since the beginning of this year across all of the campaigns for cross collaboration. It's 5.71%. And one of the top performing campaigns was Total Glue, had a 15.31% campaign. There's others that's like 25%. There wasn't as much traffic, but in terms of a campaign that had a lot of traffic, yeah, you're up 15, 20%. And then on the low end, you're going to be averaging 3 to 6, 7, 8% on average. So
and that's factoring in all the campaigns that didn't pass the tests, that didn't qualify as well. So yeah, Colton's numbers are right on par with what we're seeing. Very cool. All right, Colton, so now we know why to do them. How often should you be doing cross collaborations? Is there a burnout limit, or should we be doing them every day, or what's the rule of thumb there?
I would say the best quantity of updates to do a week is pick a Monday or like a Monday, Thursday, or a Tuesday, Friday, and do your updates then, twice a week.
Any idea with times of day, times of week, why those days versus other days? Have you noticed different conversion rates on versus a 9 a.m. versus a 9 p.m., that sort of thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. Another thing you have to look at when you do your updates is where is your, like clicking on your community tab again, where is a majority of your backers from? So are they overseas? Are they in the US? And that'll kind of tell you the best time to do those
smart.
Updates. I've seen them work going out at 9 a.m. just as well as I've seen them work posting them at 3 or 4 p.m. in the afternoon.
I love that insight you're sharing into the community tab. I had never considered that. Like, okay, well, 80% of my backers are European. Why am I publishing at 9 o'clock a.m. Mountain Time or Pacific Time or Eastern Time? I should be posting at 4 or 5 p.m. or something, you know?
And that's just one of them to go in. But as I explained earlier, I've seen them work at 9 a.m. or 3 or 4 p.m. And especially going into the weekend. I've seen when you post them on Thursday in the afternoons or Friday in the afternoons, people have time over the weekend to look at your updates instead of just, this is another email I've got to read and it's a busy Friday and I'm wanting to go home for the weekend. So those going into the weekend updates can be valuable as well.
So aside from geographical components, time of day, day of the week, those things don't matter too much.
Yeah, not as much as I thought they would. As many case studies as I've done on these, I think really any day of the week, I personally like doing them and have seen probably the best results. A Monday, Thursday update, or a Tuesday, Friday. Those work great. If you have the content, and again, these all depend on your backers. If your backers are really engaging, a great example of this is the Soda Massini slipper that we ran. Their backers, for some reason, were extremely engaging and absolutely loved to get updates. So we would do 3 a week. And it just depends on how engaging your backers are. Do they like to get a lot of the updates or not really? And they'll be pretty vocal and tell you, if you're doing too many or you're not doing enough. But I would start with 2 a week. And then if you have the content and your backers like it, you can try a Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
And what if you're doing 2 a week and you start getting 1 or 2 people every update? Hey, why stop sending these messages? I don't want these messages. What do you typically do there?
Yeah, I typically say, if you, going off of 1,000 backers again, if you've got 1,000 backers, expect anywhere from 2 to 4 people complaining about doing cross collaborations. But if you go back to your conversion rates, the first time you do an update or the first 2 times you do an update, you're going to double, if not quadruple, how many people you've gained from doing cross collaborations or new backers versus how many are complaining.
So it's really like a net loss type thing then. Am I net positive? Am I net negative? And where's the cutoff for you? Is that really what you base it on, or do you look at customer backer feedback as well?
Yeah, I base it off the, how many are complaining versus how many are you gaining type of deal. But at the same time, even if you're not doing cross collaborations, those 2 to 4 people are probably going to be vocal about, you did this wrong in your update, or your campaign should be this or that. And so sometimes there's people you just won't be able to please, even if you are doing those cross collaborations or not.
And that's really interesting you say that, Colton, because I think a lot of people who are launching a business or putting themselves out there, or their idea or their brand out there, there's the negative people who say critical things and they think, oh no, I can't be saying this, I can't be doing this. But it seems like in any marketing medium where you're able to get feedback, you're always going to have negative comments. And I just think of when we run ads on social media or on Facebook, sometimes we'll have a campaign that is absolutely crushing it, and literally every single comment is negative. And so it's like, well, the negative people, they're just want a place to vent, but the people who like it, they're not even spending their time there, and they're actually, voting with their wallet. So it's interesting that you kind of evaluate in terms of the cross collaborations, how much negativity to the positivity.
A lot of times I'll tell our backers or creators that we're working with, if you think about it, not everybody loves iPhone, but there's millions and millions of people who have iPhones, and there's probably a million or so who absolutely despise iPhones. So if Apple always catered to that million versus the 30 to 40, 50 million who love them, it'd be a totally different company.
There's something to be said about the silent majority, isn't there? I love that. Those are 2 great examples. All right. Well, Colton, I know you have a saying that you kind of go by, and we've hit on this just a little bit, but you say Kickstarter is a community. What do you mean by that?
Kickstarter, one way to think about it is when you're backing a product, a lot of your backers feel like they're mini investors. There are some companies that come on Kickstarter that are full-fledged, have been well-known companies, well established. A majority of them, though, are getting their start on Kickstarter. This is kind of where they're taking off. An example is the Pure Trek we're running right now. This is their start to their eventual business that they want to run. And so backers know that they're mini investors rather than it's established. We know we're getting an iPhone for sure. This is more of an investment, and it becomes more of a, let's see how we can help these creators bring companies to life. And so it's more of a community rather than, oh, I'm just going to back it and get a product right away. A lot of these are, 3 to 6 months, sometimes even a year down the road that you don't get your product.
That might explain a little bit why the conversion rates for cross collaborations are so high. It's one of those intangibles where they're like, oh, they thought of me. They want me to come and look at this and help them out with this campaign. I definitely have to pledge. I definitely have to back this campaign. That's a good insight. I like that a lot.
Another irony is that there are the people who don't even realize it's crowdfunding, and they actually think it's an e-commerce store, right? And they don't realize that they're helping put money in. Now that's more atypical, because most campaigns, especially large campaigns, unless they have this huge press success where they get press everywhere, really is that community that's coming and rallying behind it. And they understand the dynamics.
To build off that point, Thomas, you bring up that a lot of people don't realize this is Kickstarter and they're not going to get a product right away. and a lot of these companies are building brands. One of the things, and a lot of people that are listening to this podcast, creators may say, well, I've heard that doing cross collaborations is going to hurt my brand. You're building the brand on Kickstarter. It's definitely not going to hurt your product. And here's why. These backers, like we mentioned earlier in this podcast, are not on here shopping for one specific item. They're just on here to look for what's fun, what's cool, what's new, what's different. So if they've backed your campaign, 90 or 80% of the time, they've backed somebody else's campaign as well, and they're receiving cross collaborations from them. So they're already getting them, and by you doing them isn't going to make them mad at you or angry. They're already getting them. You might as well be doing cross collaborations on your campaign as well and gaining the fruits from doing those. A few examples, recently that we've raised $50,000 or more just through cross collaborations are campaigns like Evercam, Smart Belt, Soda Massini. I would imagine Hyperjuice is going to be one of those. And those are just recent within the last couple months.
$50,000. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, all through basically 10 minutes of your time twice a week doing an update.
Yeah, that's great.
Is there a difference, Colton, in the quality of an update that you see creators do? And if so, what's good and what's bad in terms of an update?
So Kickstarter actually came out with an article about a year and a half ago, and it's 50 ideas for updates.
We'll link to that in the show notes, by the way, too. We'll put that in the notes for everybody.
Perfect. You may be saying to yourself as a creator, if I run for 30 days twice a week, that's more updates and content than I think I can come up with. Quality updates, you don't have to write a novel for your update. It doesn't have to be a 2-page thing. I think always adding images inside of your updates or GIFs, keeping them fun, and then also putting in there's tons of things to do updates about that are great updates, like stretch goals, milestones, press or PR. Whenever you land those, you're probably going to have information about production along the way.
We just got featured in TechCrunch. Check out the article here. By the way, here's some other campaigns supporting us. Check them out. That kind of thing.
Exactly, yeah. And more than just, hey guys, we hit $50,000 raised, thanks. And then here's some campaigns. Add some pictures in there. Add some GIFs. Maybe shoot a video. There's a campaign that we work with, a sock campaign that that's all they ever do is do videos. The bamboo socks, they only did videos, and I really think their backers loved that. It was more of a personal aspect rather than just text across the screen. So
I like that a lot. I think that's a way to add an element of personality while also conveying some trust, because a lot of times people are scared about backing a crowdfunding campaign because there's a chance you don't ship. There's a chance some stuff goes wrong and your backers lose their money. So if you can show your face, if you can demonstrate your capability and your credibility by showing your face and doing a video, I think that adds a lot of trust element to your backer update. So that's a good point, Colton.
Yeah, people are putting their money in to your idea as much as they are to you as the creator. And Colton, is it okay to do a cross collaboration where it's literally just sharing other campaigns and you don't have anything about your own campaign? It's just, hey, here's an update, check out these campaigns. Can you do that? Is that okay? Or what have you seen, if anything?
Yeah, again, and I think it comes back to how well do you know your backers? How well are they responding to your previous updates? On campaigns like we talked about earlier, Soda Massini, where they just love to get information, and they actually, this wasn't something the creator did. The backers got together and created a Facebook group that still goes on to this day, a year later, about their Soda Massini shoes. He could get away with that, doing just those cross-collaboration updates. I would recommend making it more about the campaign rather than just, here's some other products we hope you like.
So would you say that cross-collaboration at the bottom of the message is kind of an afterthought or a PS that's after an actual message you're sharing? Is that the idea?
Yeah, definitely. You never want to drag away, and that's something we could cover as well. You never want to drag away attention from your own product. So that's why I would never recommend doing, if you have a set of headphones, doing another cross collaboration with another set of headphones. You don't want to drag the attention away from your campaign. These cross collaborations are like an added bonus of other campaigns that your backers might like.
So, Colton, we've talked a little bit about some stats and some different myths. Just to recap for everybody listening, cross collaborations are going to convert anywhere from, and again, these are if they actually work. There's, of course, you might have a product that doesn't convert at all and it doesn't raise any money, and no amount of cross collaborations are going to fix that. That's one of your 7P type issues. But generally speaking, if you have a good campaign, your CCs are going to convert between 4 to 20%. Another stat, you can raise $50,000 or more from cross collaborations if you have a really good campaign. And then the idea of branding, and I hear this a lot too, and I'll just share my 2 cents that you talked about. I loved what you said. You don't have a brand. You're on Kickstarter, and that's not a bad thing, but you don't have a brand. I was looking at a company called PopSocket, and they happened to raise $18,000 several years ago on Kickstarter. And if you don't know what PopSocket is, it's the little thing that you can put on the back of your phone that makes it easier to hold the big phones or to stand your phone up so that you could like watch a movie or something on it. And they've done extremely well now. So well that they've done $160 million, and they're one of the fastest growing companies, I think number 2 or something on the Inc. 500 this last year. So here's the point. You don't have a brand. And so when you're on Kickstarter, you need to be doing everything you can to raise as much money as you can. And the easiest way to prove if you have a brand or not, go on Google, type in your name, type in your company name, type in whatever you have. Chances are nothing's going to come up. Go look in the news section. Chances are nothing's going to come up. You don't have a brand. And so your job, just like PopSocket that only raised $18,000 and now, I don't know, 5-6 years later, which is pretty short if you think about things, is doing $162 million and definitely a brand. That's how you have to go about thinking of things. Is that kind of what you try to convey to people as you do cross collaborations, Colton?
Definitely. And one of the things to keep in mind too, the more backers you can get, and as we've talked about here, this is going to be your highest converting source of traffic. So likelihood you're going to get a lot of backers from it is there. These are little mini ambassadors for your campaign. Basically, they're going to go share the word all over Facebook. Look what I just purchased. And then that spreads. So every backer matters. And cross collaborations is one of the greatest ways to gain those.
Let's wrap this up then, Colton. If you could summarize, I don't know, in a few sentences or so, this idea, this concept of cross collaborations, what would you leave as parting words of wisdom to the listeners of the Funded Today podcast?
Great question. I always like to think of every campaign as I'm working on it as if it were my own. And now working on so many, if I was running a campaign today, why I would do cross collaborations is the question. Number one, you should be, if you're not, start with doing updates. One of the worst things you can do is not keep your backers updated. I see products go 45 days and they have 2 updates. That's one of the worst things you can do. So keep your backers updated. It takes you 10 to 20 minutes to write an update. It takes you 5 minutes to add those cross collaborations. And you're having campaigns. If you're not working with us, which we hope you are, campaign creators are going to reach out to you. I guarantee you, any creator listening to this that is live right now with at least 250 backers or more has several messages in their inbox that have creators reaching out to them to do these.
How many should we add? Is there a rule like 3, 4, 10, 20? How many should be posted at the bottom of each update?
Yeah, I wouldn't add any more than 5. I would say 3 to 5. If you're just starting with cross collaborations, add no more than 4. Test it out. See what happens. And then you can progress to 5. I wouldn't add any more than 5. To be honest with you, if you're a creator and you were added to a campaign lower than 5, you're not going to get that much traffic. And so it doesn't do you really any good to do that.
Makes sense. Now, Colton, one last question for you on that, and then I'll let you finish that thought. Sorry to interrupt you, but I had one more idea come to mind. You talk about creators having their inbox flooded with people to do CCs, but what about outreach? What about trying to get people to do CCs for you? Because I'm sure there's some campaigns you're like, oh man, if this guy would just post about me, it would be so amazing, and I could offer perfect synergy for his campaign. What do you do there? Is there any approach or process to get people to write about you and do a CC with you who maybe aren't flooding your inbox asking to, you scratch my back, I scratch yours?
Yeah. One of the things that's going to take is you're going to have to use your best sales tactics here. But if you're a lower campaign with 300 backers, or lower, below 1,000, and that's not bad. Anything above 200 backers, that's a great campaign in my opinion.
Mhm.
I would reach out to them. You may like a hyper campaign that's got 10,000 backers. If you reach out to them, he may say, "We'll post for you, but I want you to post for us now and then in 2 weeks."
Mhm.
If they have 10,000 backers, that's a no-brainer. Go for it. But doing outreach to those campaigns, the worst thing they can say is no, and you'd be back to square one where you're at. So form some sort of message together, or contact me and I'll help you form a message together, right?
Now, we called you the closer originally when we started this episode, and I think that name is pretty affectionate because within your cross-collaboration network is, I don't know, more than 1,000 campaigns. What's the number at any given point in time of who you can tap into to apply this strategy, Colton? And maybe leading in, you answer that question, but then how can people get in touch with you if they want to work some CCs together?
Yeah, so a great way to get in touch with me is Colton. So it's COLTON at funded.today. I'd be happy to hear whatever questions you have or help you as best as we can. But we always have at least anywhere from 400 to 500 campaigns that I like to keep in contact with on tap. That may be a little high, but that's usually about what it is. But we can always call upon. And then every day we're doing outreach. My team and I are doing outreach to other campaigns to create more relationships so that our network is always growing. That's why Funded Today, one of the advantages is of Funded Today and working with us rather than doing or figuring out cross collaborations on your own is even if you do get good at doing a one-for-one, meaning you post about a product and then they'll post about you, is Funded Today has such a vast majority of vast campaigns that we can work with that we can usually get you in a 2 or a 3-for-1. So if you post about 2 or 3 of our products, you've got a few more backers, we can usually get you in 5 or 6 products in return.
The logistics of that just must be insane, Colton.
Yeah, that's definitely the more. I always like to think of UPS's commercial. They're always talking about we're logistics gurus. That's how I feel every day. It's all about logistics. So
I can only imagine.
Let me add one other comment. Pre-launch strategy. If you're thinking of launching a campaign, we talk about triple F, but CCs should be a part of that. How could somebody, aside from what they might do with Funded Today, if they were to engage with us or do something else, if they were doing it, what can people do themselves on launch day to have a strong CC day? How would they go about that, Colton?
2 answers to that question. Number one, let's start out and say that this is your 2nd or 3rd campaign and you're just listening to this podcast and learning about cross collaborations. Utilize your previous campaigns. I cannot stress that enough. So if you have a previous campaign that's got 300 or 400 backers on it, reach out to campaigns and say, hey, I know my campaign's a little bit older, but I'll post about your product on this 300 or 400 backer campaign if you'll post about my product on launch day 1 or 2. And then in return, you can also, if you don't have a previous campaign, which a majority of you probably won't, reach out to campaigns that are live or will be live when your campaign launches and say, hey, I know I don't have any backers right now. Here's my product. It's a quality product. I imagine I'll have 300 to 500 backers or more. And if you post for me on launch day, I'll post about your product when I have 200, 300, 400 backers. So we do that for all of our campaigns that qualify for it. For pre-launch, we always line up anywhere from 10 to 20 plus campaigns, depending on the product, to post for you on launch day. And it helps drive you up in the Kickstarter algorithm, which moves you up on pages. And that's the advantage, is cross collaborations are not going to be a trickle effect of pledges. It can residual, but it's going to be waves of pledges that come at once when those updates go out, which helps you move up in Kickstarter's algorithm, which basically moves up the just organic traffic.
I love that. That ties in nicely to last episode with Tevin as well. Some different pre-launch strategies that you can combine so that you can have a good launch. Very, very powerful. And we've seen that work to the tune of raising $100,000 or more within those first 48 hours of launch day. So, Colton, thanks again for being on our show today. And we loved having you. Okay, it is that time again for the Funded Today Products of the Week. And because we have a special guest, we're going to have Colton jump back in and share his product of the week. Colton?
Yeah, so my product of the week is Click Fit Belt. They're live on Kickstarter right now. Go check them out. They've got about 21 days left. Brian Thacker and his team have been great to work with, and their belt is a product that must have for
Awesome.
sure.
Thomas, what's your product of the week?
Yeah, my product of the week is a campaign called Pitaka, Pitaka. It's an all-in-one charging dock. It's probably the coolest charging dock I legitimately have ever seen. The coolest part about it is it sits maybe 3 or 4 inches tall, and you can set the phone on top to charge it, kind of like the other charging pads that you'd get at the store. But this one actually swivels around, so then it will actually prop up. Imagine putting the thing in your vent in your car or on your window when you're driving so you can see the phone the whole time. That's basically how it looks like, but it sits on your desk and it's charging the whole time. And then you can also put like your smartwatch around it to have it charge. And then there's a zip and go bag. It's a really cool dock for charging anything wireless. Check it out. That's Pitaka. I might be saying it wrong, but Pitaka charging dock.
Awesome. Thanks, Thomas. And finally, my product of the week. This one is very, very exciting. It hasn't even launched yet, so you're probably going to be able to get right in on the pre-launch. It is called Anti, A-N-T-I, and this is the world's first beanie. You heard that right, beanie. I don't know what they call that in Canada, but I've listened to Nathan For You before, and he calls it something else. But it's basically a little hat you wear when you go skiing or snowboarding. The world's first beanie that's as safe as a helmet. They've got a patented design. This beanie is going to harden on impact, then go back to being soft. So you get the comfort of a beanie, you can tread the slopes, but then you have the safety of a helmet. Pretty cool, pretty exciting. They are taking signups on their website right now, antiordinary.co. That's antiordinary.co. You can sign up there to get exclusive news, updates, and early bird discounts. They are planning on launching here in 2018 before the end of the year, so you want to check that one out. I'm really excited about that because we are from Utah and we've got the greatest snow on earth, so Anti, check it out. That is my product of the week. We were so glad to have Colton Bybee, the Director of Outreach at Funded Today, on our show today. I love the nitty-gritty detail and data he brought to demonstrate and prove his points. If you might need to go back through and listen to this to capture some of the data points and come away with some of the action items, but I would highly recommend putting everything he talked about today into practice for your campaign. And if you love this episode, please give this one a 5-star rating, and we'll continue to bring even more all-stars on the show to help you bring your next big idea to life. Speaking of which, next time we're going to fill in the missing gap of marketing with another one of our tried and true methods. Have you ever wanted to learn how to convince the press, media, journalists, bloggers, and YouTube influencers to get excited and actually promote your company or invention? If so, you're not going to want to miss out on our next masterclass. We're going to walk you through everything we've done to raise millions of dollars for thousands of campaigns, leveraging this one secret. You're not going to want to miss it. So until next time, remember, don't wait until tomorrow. Get funded today.
Funded Today is the worldwide leader in rewards-based crowdfunding on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. Combined, they have raised over $200 million and counting for thousands of new ideas and inventions worldwide. If you've got an idea for a new product or invention, visit fundedtoday.com to speak with one of their experts.